Yeah, right at the beginning, if that makes sense, before we even put a single clip or any sort of track onto the timeline of the video, we've already put 10 to 15 hours in of just going through everything.
This is the Creative Crunch Podcast.
Yesterday's left turn might be tomorrow's right turn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wait. That's a good idea. Okay. Well, So, yeah. Welcome back, everybody, to the Creative Crunch Podcast. This will be the season 1 finale of our podcast here, and this year 2021, we've definitely just kind of dipped our foot in the water. Dipped our foot in the water. We definitely just dipped our feet in the water. With the whole podcast space and, playing around with that, learning a lot, realizing really quick that's a lot more work than we thought. But what is this, episode 8? 9? 10?
Yeah, it depends if you count the ones that we never released.
Or the ones that we released and then deleted right away.
I think I'd remember the number if we would just release everything, but... Some of them are really bad.
Some of them are really bad. Is the car
Some of the ones we released are bad. The car one's still there.
We haven't even removed
that one. Doesn't.
That's the worst.
Yeah, that one was bad. But it was a lot of good content.
I cried in that one.
Oh, we should go back and re-listen that.
Re-listen it? What is re-listen it? Can you explain that?
Read listen.
Oh. Re-listen, of course. Okay. Off to a good start. And yeah. So welcome back again, season 1 finale. We've got big plans for 2022 with the podcast. We definitely want to release more and be more engaging and bring on guests and stuff. But like I said, this year has just been kind of testing the waters and seeing what we can do. But thanks for everyone that's listened. We just looked at our Spotify Wrapped thingy, and there's like 9 people that really follow us and listen to everything. So shout out to you guys. But anyway, so
let us know if you want like a signature or anything from us, because
if you've listened to every podcast, let us know, and we're gonna bring you on as a guest.
Yeah,
that's not a bad idea. That's actually not a bad idea. But so the year's winding down. What's been a good part for you, Ben, for 2021? What's some of your highlights?
Oh my gosh, highlights!
I'm just throwing it out there.
What did I do that in 2021?
No, 1996.
Oh my God, 1996! I would have been 4 years old.
I was 0.
I don't think I made a core memory, or a conscious memory at that point. 4 years old? That's I don't remember preschool, to be honest.
Yeah.
Maybe that was preschool.
I don't even remember preschool.
No, yeah, I remember preschool. I have like 2 memories from preschool.
What are they?
But they're not highlights.
Yeah, they're not highlights. They're not highlights from this year.
Actually, they're the only... I guess they would be a highlight from 1996 because it's probably the only 2 memories I remember from that year. The only 2 things I did that year.
Okay, give me one of them.
Okay, one of them was... there was this kid, and I think his name was Tyler maybe, but I remember we were playing with the toys, and he threw this doll, and the doll landed on its feet. And I just remember thinking, dude, that guy is incredible. How did he do that? And it was just a fluke.
There's no skill involved with that at all.
No, and I thought it was skill, and I was like, are you kidding me?
Well, that's
that guy's going places.
What's he doing now?
I don't know. I wish I knew. I couldn't even put a face on it. I think he had dark hair, maybe. I think his name was Tyler.
Tyler, dark.
So Tyler, if you're one of the 9 listeners.
Yeah, one of our 9 regular listeners, shout out to you for giving Ben one memory from preschool. All right,
2020
no,
or 2021.
yeah, let's jump a few years and hit 2021.
A highlight.
Just like what was good. It can be one thing.
If we're referring to business, I feel like like you'd want with every business. I feel like my business has exceeded the previous years, like as far as income and my overall skills. I feel like have improved from previous years, and that's what we want. We want to continue to get better and be able to charge more.
Yeah.
I feel like a big win though for us is we're finally able to. We've had a few legit out of state weddings that weren't. They weren't like we didn't like eat the cost of stuff.
So you made a decent profit and still.
Yeah, from an out of state wedding.
Where'd you all go? It's funny asking that because I know. Oh, I know. And you don't?
Let's see. We went to
Texas.
Yeah, Texas was one of them. Wisconsin, I guess, but that was kind of in-state.
No. Wisconsin is not.
I mean, it's out of state, but I feel like if you have to drive to it, though, it doesn't really feel like an out of state wedding.
That was a long drive, though. We could have.
Yeah, and I actually have a wedding it's like 7 hours away next year, and I'm like thinking, man, I wonder if I should just fly and then rent a car that takes me, because man, 7 hours in the car, that's painful.
At least we were together, or maybe that might have made it worse.
Yeah.
Okay, so you got Texas, Wisconsin that you said was in the state of Iowa.
Yeah, and we booked a few for next year that are out of state weddings, which we're pretty excited for. There's one in Colorado, a few in Wisconsin and Illinois. Yeah, what about you?
Should have figured you were going to turn the question back to me. 2021. Yeah, probably. I mean, same for me. I booked my first like legitimate destination wedding in California in Yosemite. You came with. That was a pretty big win. And then I've only kind of done like Minnesota, Illinois weddings besides that. So that's the first one I had to hop on a plane for with all the gear, and that was a lot of fun, even though we were both suffering pretty bad from pretty severe sinus infections.
Yeah, that wasn't fun.
I mean, it was, but it wasn't. The wedding, the shooting stuff was cool. The feeling the way we were feeling, not. Yeah, so that's pretty cool. Big win for me. And then I just say, like, I've met quite a few people this year too, that maybe I'm not necessarily like super close with, but I've built a connection and like a friendship with a lot of people. And that's something pretty important to me. So, I'd say the whole Yosemite wedding and then meeting some pretty cool people along the way. I think that's that's got to be like probably my favorite part of this job. I don't know about you, but just being like not forced, but forced to meet a bunch of new cool people in the same industry, a bunch of creative minded people and like couples and their friends and stuff. I think that's just, I don't know, that's a highlight for just wedding videography, period.
Yeah, we do get to meet a lot of people. Definitely made a lot of connections over the year. Like for instance, this New Year's Eve party that we're going to, we were gifted tickets to this party, and this is the first New Year's where we haven't had a wedding, so we're actually going to celebrate it. And they're originally like $100 a piece, and so we were like, oh boy, we're definitely gonna take you up on that. So yeah, super cool. All the the networking we get to do and connections we bake the connections we bake.
We bake a lot of connections.
Another thing that it feels kind of successful, I guess, is I was able to grow my TikTok really quickly, into what I felt like came from a. I mean, I don't know if I'd consider it an original idea, but the whole thing with miking people and then filming them while they're eating, that seemed to catch fire, which led to me getting these out of state weddings. So I'd consider that a big win.
Yeah, if you do not follow Graphic Formation Films on TikTok, go give him a follow. He's up there, and I think he's top 10 followers worldwide. I think he got a couple billion.
Yeah.
How many do you actually have? Like 30,000, 40,000?
I think 35,000 or something.
But
I feel like on TikTok it feels less significant because it's literally I don't know.
I wouldn't say it's easy to go viral because I've had like maybe 2 TikToks get over 5,000, 10,000 views, and that's about it. And you have pretty much all of yours get like 27 to a couple million views. So, you're right in saying that's a big win for 2021.
Okay, so what's on the topic?
Yeah, so we'll see you guys next year. Topic: the post-production process of editing wedding highlights. So editing your full films. We want to talk about that at the end of the year here because that's our lives as of recently for the last month or so, is just really honing in on those highlights. And so I think post-production is one of those things that is not talked about enough, because it's probably one of the things that's pretty difficult to talk about, and just because there's so much that goes into it. So we're gonna dive in a little bit, and hopefully, if you're out there waiting for one of your videos from us or from another videographer, hopefully this kind of explains the process of maybe why it's taking a little bit longer than you expected. So, how long do you think it takes you, graphic formation, graphic imaging, to edit a highlight?
To edit a highlight, I feel like every wedding is a little bit different.
Just average.
If you're thinking about the time, if you were to just sit down and do it in one shot, maybe 40 to 60, sometimes 80.
Yeah,
on average between 40 and 60.
I'd say 40 is even fast. Like that's definitely on the faster end of turning around a full 8 to 12 minute highlight.
I used to be able to do it in like 15 to 20 hours, but that was I feel like I didn't have much intention when I was editing. It was more like I just placed it on a timeline as I found the clips. Mm-hmm. Whereas I'm a lot more thorough now, and I want to make sure the story is fluid and accurate. So that process of storytelling is what takes the longest.
Yeah, and obviously, like you said, 15 to 20 hours, that's when you first started. So obviously you've learned some more techniques and complex editing skills, and obviously you've enhanced.
you might think that as you get better, you can edit faster. But no, I feel like it's actually the opposite. The more you learn, I mean, might get faster at specific techniques, but as far as the storytelling or editing, I guess. Editing is such a broad thing.
Yeah,
There's so many parts to editing.
Like, yeah. I mean, we can just kind of jump into it.
Like, I used to color as I edit, which I still sometimes do. But now, when I get done with the film, I have to start. Like, you never used to color while you edited?
No, that's always the very last thing I do.
Yeah, I used to color while I edit. Like, I'd put a clip on timeline, color it, and then, like, at the very end, I'd go through it one more time and fix any last bits. But now I get done editing the film, and then I have to go back to the beginning and do all the tweaks, the color grading, and stuff like that.
Yeah. So the way that I do it is obviously, I mean, let's just dive into the process. I mean, that's what we're here to talk about. So, I think we have different editing styles, but I think they're still relatively similar. So first thing that we would do is we would hop in and then we would make a multicam sequence of, all of the...
Wait, hold on. I want to start off by saying I want to establish the difference a little bit. I'm not trying to say our job is harder than photographers.
Oh, no.
Even though I feel like most photographers would agree.
Oh, okay. Just be careful what you're saying.
Would agree that it is harder. I'm just saying from my understanding, this is the process that photographers go through. So they get let's just say average, they take 3,000 photos at a wedding. So they come home. This is assuming they do all the editing. They come home, they put all the files onto the computer, and then they have to cull through and find all of the good ones. So that's probably their longest process is the culling. Maybe. I guess I don't know what takes the longest. I'm assuming culling takes the longest because...
Yeah, because you have such a high quantity of images to go through.
Yeah, and you have to find the photos where people aren't blinking and stuff like that. I assume that takes the longest. And once they cull the photos, then that's when they go back and they edit them, fix the colors and stuff. Then once they fix the colors and put their style to it, then they
export
it and maybe put it into collections and stuff like that. Now, that's a very broad explanation of what they do. For video, we technically do all of that. But then you add on audio, keyframing stuff. So, like, maybe the first part of the shot will need to be exposed a little more. So you keyframe exposure on one part of a shot and you change the exposure of the colors to the end of the shot. So, like, the only reason I'm explaining this is because couples will get their photos back much before they'll get their video, and I just want to make sure people understand.
Yeah, I know we've talked
why it takes so much longer.
I know we've talked about it before, but it'd be cool to bring on. I mean, we know so many photographers; it'd be hard to pick who to come on, but it'd be cool to physically bring on a photographer and have that conversation of like the legitimate differences between what we do versus what we do, or what we do versus what they do.
They come on and they're just like the judge, you and me talking about like, no, yeah. We edit this way. And you're like, I know we edit this way.
We're just fighting. We're agreeing, but we're fighting. But no, I think it'd be really cool to actually bring on a photographer. It'd be difficult to just pick one because we have so many and have so many connections with them. But I think in a broad sense, you're correct on like their process. But I think, just like with video, there's so much more that goes into it that so many people don't know anything about. So I think it'd be really cool to have that this versus that kind of conversation with a photographer on maybe the whole process, booking all the way to sending the final files. I think how many times have I said I think that would be cool? I think that would be cool. I think that would be cool. I think that would be
that
cool.
would be so dope, dude.
Yeah, dude, the dopest.
That'd be dope.
But yeah. So anyway,
that's
good preface there. So yeah, 9 times out of 10, you're gonna get your photo gallery well before you get your highlight film, especially if you book a higher end type of videographer that takes the time with storytelling, all that stuff. So let's dive into it. What is that whole post-production process? So we're done filming the wedding, the sneak peek's done. That's a little bit different. So now let's dive into the highlight. So first step for us is there's something called like making a multicam sequence. So during your ceremony, your toasts, your first look, anything that has dialogue or,
any like planned event.
Any planned event
that has dialogue.
We have multiple cameras. So for me, I have 4. Ben, I think, has like 18. And did I ever tell you real quick? There's a photographer I worked with. I can't remember her name, but she said she worked with you, and she's like, "Yeah, he had like 10 cameras." I was like, "I don't think he did."
No, it's no 10 cameras unless you were working.
No, I think it probably just seems like it because like you have so many tripods and little gadgets here and there. But anyway, I usually shoot with 4, and Ben shoots with 6. Is that right? 6 cameras?
5 main cameras, and you can count the Osmo as a 6th creative angle. But there's definitely some times where I don't think you need 5, but there's been times where 5 has saved me.
Yeah, because there's a lot of times people are moving in front of the cameras, but that's a different podcast. So anyway, all those events that we have multiple cameras, the first thing we do in the post-production process is we make a multicam sequence, which is putting all those cameras and all of that audio together and pretty much synchronizing it, making it all sync up, and then making cuts to different cameras to make it look appealing, I guess. Sort of is the way. I mean, you can do a multicam and not necessarily pick your camera angles during that like right away, but I mean, that's how I do it. And then after, what Ben can talk about is then we start sifting through the audio, and that's probably one of the longer processes. So if Ben wants to touch on that.
Yeah, so you said multicam. We make the multicams because that's where we find the story. So like as soon as we get all the multicams made, then it's time to find the pieces of story. So we haven't even like looked at the footage we've gotten. We're just trying to find the audio that is usable, sounds good, and adds to the couple's story. So we'll start one multicam at a time. So that essentially means going through and re-listening to the ceremony, re-listening to the toasts, the first look multiple times. Not just like one time through and you're like, okay, yeah, there's nothing good. No, we go through, we pull up, we find a little part of it, and we mark it as a part that's significant, possible to use. We keep going through, and then once we go through it once, then we'll listen to the part again and be like, okay, this first part kind of ties in with what this person says in the toasts. So yeah, that's kind of how we do it. Now I do it a little bit different. You do this too. We dictate the audio, the significant audio, into text and put it onto an iPad for visual storyboarding, I guess.
There's something a lot easier about that. Like, so what he means is we'll take all of the audio that we marked that could be significant or could be, good for the story, and we throw it on. I mean, Ben and I both use iPads, so we throw it all the audio into a text version on the iPad, and then the way I do it, I don't know if we do it a little bit differently, but I mark it kind of by color, so I break it out into sections. So say this part of the ceremony matches something that the dad said during the first look. You would mark those as the same color, and you would incorporate those onto your editing timeline together. It's just a good way, instead of just listening over and over again. It's a good way to see it and read it, and then makes the process.
You can see significant words
right
that will like tie together. You can be like, okay, the mom said For instance, it'd be like maybe the maid of honor was mentioning something about the bride's dad passing away, and then during the ceremony, the officiant mentioned something about the bride's dad passing away. So you can maybe mark those two sentences and then like draw a line between them to be like these two are significant, and then you can kind of organize it in a way that kind of is like what do you even call it? It's like a story arc or something. Where it has like it rises and has like high emotion.
Mm-hmm.
So there's like an intro and a climax. And there's like a hook at the beginning. So yeah, we kind of organize it in a way that there's like a story arc.
And Ben actually showed me how to do that, and that has absolutely changed the game, because after that process, once you get done with that and you mark all the colors and you organize it in a way that you want to, then what's left is not easy, but then you got to get your music. That'd probably be the next step if you don't already have that. Yeah, you get your music and you cut it to the way you like.
So at this point, we haven't even started the highlight yet.
Yeah. So
We've just gotten the audio and figured out how we want to place it on a timeline.
What would you say? 7 to 10 hours probably before we even start throwing stuff on the timeline. Give or take.
I mean,
it's a hard estimate.
Okay, I'd say the first thing is you gotta dump all the footage, and if you have to make proxies, maybe you do that overnight. You're not really working while the proxies are making, but that still takes time to make all the proxies.
Mm-hmm.
So that's like 2 hours to that point. And then you got to make the multicams, which is another like hour. If you color grade the multicam, which saves you time later, which I'm starting to do better at. That's another like hour, 2 hours. And then you get all the audio, so it could be 15 hours.
Yeah, it could.
It's like at least 3 days of work almost.
Yeah.
By the time you're done with that.
Yeah. So yeah, right at the beginning, before we even, if that makes sense, before we even put a single clip or any sort of track onto the timeline of the video, we've already put 10 to 15 hours in of just going through everything. So this would be like the culling process for photographers. I'm not sure if that really takes 15 hours on their end, but since we're dealing with dialogue and storytelling and different things like that, it can.
That's probably the most similar to what they do.
The
culling. They cull photos, we cull audio.
Yeah. And then obviously
because audio is the most important part of what we do, probably.
Oh yeah, by far. Everyone says what audio is 50% of the viewing experience. I think it's more than that. Like, if you have good audio from a wedding day, gosh, you could make that into like a storybook and it'd still be really good. Like, I'm trying to think of a couple examples. Like, I don't know, my wedding, Molly and Travis. I mean, they had so much audio throughout the day that I could almost make that into just an audio book. So I'd say it's even more important than 50%. I'd say I'd go 75, maybe even a little higher.
Yeah, because there's nothing more stressful than when we get back and figure out that like either the toast audio didn't sound good, like something happened with the system, or there was a lot of echo, or there just simply wasn't enough dialogue throughout the day. That's like the most stressful thing because we want to be able to tell a story, and it can be hard if you don't have audio.
Yeah, and I mean, there's nothing wrong with the couples that just go the traditional route. They don't, just the traditional ceremony and whatever. But something that helps us and will help your video stand out and be amazing is if you make sure to add a lot of personality into your day. So whether that be reading letters to each other or doing personal vows, or any unique things like that really help in that storytelling process. Where was I? Where were we? We're just now getting to the point of putting something on the timeline, right?
Yeah.
We're probably about 15-ish hours into the process. And first of all, before I forget, let's talk about finding music, because that takes a whole lot of time too. That can take anywhere from, that's probably the most broad like broad amount of time. You could probably find something in 30 minutes and be like, this is going to be perfect, but it can also take a day or two to find.
Yeah, it's such a weird thing because I feel like I do that when I'm not working. Like I'm technically working, like when I go to the gym, when I'm in the car, when I'm at the grocery store, I'll have my AirPods in, and I'm just like, I'll hit play on the first song, and I'm just like, next. It's hours.
Yeah, I mean, when you look at that's kind of a harder one to gauge because, like you said, we're listening to that music not necessarily when we're working on highlights. Like usually we can find that before, or sometimes I find it right before I start the highlight. But that's a long process in itself that we could have a whole podcast on, talking about why we choose the type of music we choose. But so anyway, let's just say we have the songs already, and let's just throw a number like maybe it took a couple hours to find the music we wanted to use. So now finally we're throwing stuff on the timeline. So I don't know if Ben does it this way, but I'll throw the kind of the music tracks on there, usually instrumental and vocal, and I cut it in a way. So obviously instrumental when I'm putting the dialogue that we found, and that's on the iPad, and then usually I throw in the vocal parts if there are lyrical parts, for like portraits and details and stuff like that. But is that usually your next process, kind of cutting up the song to fit the way you want to tell the story?
Yeah, I'd say I usually try to see if there's some sort of hook, whether that's like a piece of dialogue that maybe doesn't fit with the rest of the story, but kind of shows the couple's personality. I try to start by finding a hook, and then once I find that hook, then I go to the start of the story. But that might require finding a song that kind of has a quick intro that I can cut off like pretty quick.
You're talking about like the intro to your videos? Like just making it something that stands out, probably something a little more upbeat, just give catching the eye of the viewer. So obviously your couple is going to watch this video, right? Like that's their video. They're going to watch the whole thing. But, part of the process of editing too is selling ourselves. And like, we want other couples to see these videos too. So, with a catchy intro, I know that's kind of a tangent, but with a catchy intro, it's easier to book more weddings, I would say, because you catch their attention and then they watch either the rest of the video or they go watch some other videos of yours. But yeah. All right. So we got the music. It's cut on. It's on the timeline, just how we want. Obviously, we'll adjust that as we go. And so next, what would you say cutting music? What amount of time would you put on that? I mean, that can vary too.
Yeah, that's one of those processes that I'm still learning. I'm tweaking all the time, but typically what I do is find a song, and then from that first song, I'll find songs that kind of either have the same key or a key that transitions easily. But the first song, usually I'll get the instrumental version with it, and I'll break it up into like 2 or 3 segments so I can have like a little piece of dialogue, then I'll go into like a chorus, then I'll go back to an instrumental verse, maybe loop that verse 1 or 2 times depending on how long the dialogue is. And then see, it's one of those processes, it's just like it just kind of comes with it as you edit.
Yeah. I mean, for me, so what I try to do is I try to have a general idea of where I want things to go. So usually, like you said, start with a kind of an intro, whether it's the same song or a different song in the same key, whatever. And then you kind of start to lay out the places to put dialogue. So I guess the way that I do it is, So I'll throw that intro in there or whatever, just the music. I don't even edit that yet. And then I'll cut into the slower part or the instrumental part. And then I'll put that first part of dialogue that's, labeled on the iPad as first part. And then from there, just kind of build out the backbone, the spine of the story with all the dialogue. You just kind of build that out for the 7 to 10 minutes, however long your video is going to be. And then, that's a very broad way of saying the actual amount of work that goes into that. But that's probably another, what would you say, day or two of work there.
Yeah, because what I do is I'll put a first song on the timeline, and then I'll put a piece of dialogue on there, and then depending on how long that dialogue is, I'll be like, okay, I'll put the instrumental part starting here, and then I'm like, okay, it needs to be a little bit longer, so I'll loop that instrumental part. So it kind of starts as a whole, and then you just keep cutting, and it either gets longer or shorter, depending on the story. And depending on the emotion, because sometimes you have to change the song just because the song won't match the emotion.
Mm-hmm. Yeah, that's a perfect example. So the wedding I'm working on now, I wouldn't say I started with more of an upbeat song, but definitely not a slow, romantic, dreamy type of one. And now so I got kind of the setup for the day. So the officiant's saying, welcome, we're here to celebrate the love, whatever, just kind of that standard stuff, kind of setting the scene for the video. And then once I got to their vows or the deeper part of the ceremony, I had to go find a different song that was much slower and kind of dreamier because it didn't match the tempo of the song that I had originally picked. Does that make sense? This is almost, sometimes it's we should just make a 40-hour long video of just every single part of editing a video.
There has been times where I've thought about, man, maybe one of these times I should just sit down and nonstop just try to edit an entire highlight without stopping and just see how long. I think I'd fall asleep eventually, but
oh, your brain would be fried by hour 10.
Yeah, that would be.
And then you'd be so exhausted that you wouldn't be able to work on it for a couple of days because your brain would need to recover. That sounds like a terrible idea.
Yeah, that would be hard.
But yeah, so anyways, if you're following along, I don't know if this makes any sense. We're very rusty, but so now we've got the story. We have an idea of the storyboard of what we want to do. I just enjoyed Ben taking a big old chomp out of that or the rest of that sandwich.
Tomato.
It's making me hungry. But yeah, so now we've got the story. Okay, so all we have now on the timeline is music. That's nothing set in stone, but we have music that we want for over the story, and then we've got the audio from the day. And now we're looking at probably hour 25, 30?
Yeah.
Probably.
This is definitely a multi-day process.
Yeah. I'm just going from that 40 to 60 hours that you talked about, and we'll probably hit more of the 40-hour, the faster turnaround time with what we're going with. But so yeah, before we even do any of the cool intro, the cool portraits, any of the B-roll, the details, anything like that, we've already spent 25, 30 hours on just building the story around our couple's wedding day. So that obviously is over half for even the 40 to 60 hour mark. So that's, about half the process. And then after that kind of comes where, maybe our creative differences fit in, but then we start throwing in the B-roll, the portraits, the details, and then maybe we start shifting some of the story because we're like, oh, we got this cool shot of this necklace that her mom gave her and her mom passed away. And then you want to, kind of shift things around.
Yeah, this is where we'll start exporting drafts, and we'll be like, hey, we'll send it to our friends and be like, hey, does this story feel too long, or is there anything that feels insignificant, to give somebody else a perspective of Like, I've been to the wedding, so I know, but maybe what does it look like to somebody else?
Right. You want some, the goal, at least the way I look at it, the goal of a wedding video is to make the people that weren't there feel like they were there. So yeah, it's always a good idea. I mean, we do it all the time. We send each other drafts or FaceTime each other and say, "Hey, watch this. Does this make sense?" But this next process is very just kind of up in the air. Then we just start to play with it a little bit. We start throwing things on here and there. Maybe we don't like it. We try again. And I mean, from there, I don't know how you'd explain the timeline on this, because this again can be very quick. Like not a very quick, but this could be a day or two process to a 4-5 day process of like basically adding the layers to the story. If that makes sense. Does that make sense? Or do you have a better way to say that? You're adding the meat to it.
Yeah, just the pretty stuff, I guess.
Mm-hmm. The things that makes it visually fun, I guess.
Yeah.
But
the details, the portraits.
The candid moments that happen throughout the day. That's when this stuff goes in. This all goes on top or in the spaces that we left on the timeline. For what was I saying? Gosh, I always go blank. Every episode, I should go back. We should make a montage. I feel like every episode there's something I'm saying and then I just stop because I just lose my train of thought.
Yeah, I mean, you're just adding like the spice, the flavor, I guess.
Yeah, because I mean, no offense, it would be boring. It wouldn't be boring, but for a video purpose, it would be boring just to see the ceremony toasts and, first look or whatever other dialogue is throughout the day, because I mean, essentially they're just standing there. Like, yeah, maybe there's some emotion here and there, but that's only about 70% of the story. And then the rest is the flavor that graphic formation calls it. Or what's your thing?
Flavor.
Wedding films with a touch of flavor or something like that.
Yeah, wedding films with flavor.
Yeah.
Wedding. Yeah.
I keep asking, does that make sense? Like we're talking, like this is alive, but I guess we'll find out. I think. Yeah.
Could we get some questions?
Yeah.
For people with questions, what questions do we got?
What?
No, I think it does make sense.
Yeah. So, I mean, after that part, once you kind of add the flavor or the meat or whatever to the story, then you start to see you have a full film. And then you can start to critique things, move things around even more, just maybe add in those final touches. And then Ben can talk about that final adding, the final of adding the colors, the sound effects, the minor touch-ups here and there. And I mean, that's
essentially you render your film. Rendering meaning make it so your computer can play it back smoothly. And then you play it, and then you just sit back and you watch it, and then you stop it, and you're like, okay, I need to add an ambient shot here, or this shot I need to cut like 3 frames early. And you like keep going back, tweaking it, and then starting from the beginning, playing it through again, seeing if it feels fluid. Adding in your sound design, changing all those little things that you may not have seen as you were editing. And then like exporting it, playing it on your phone. What I do is I'll like the night before, like I'll go to bed, I'll like export a film. Even if I know it's not done, I'll like export it as like a draft and I'll send it to my phone. And then when I go to the gym, I'll like watch it multiple times, and I'll sometimes take screenshots of certain parts. Like I need to remember to tweak that. And I'll watch to the point where I'm like almost sick of it. So when I get back from the gym in the morning, then I'm like ready to roll.
I think a classic thing that Ben and I say to each other when we send something is, why is this so bad? Because we watch it over and over and over again. We just start to get not
Why do
tired
I
of
hate
it.
this? Yeah.
Yeah. And almost it never is. I mean, not to pat us on the back, but it's never really that. It's never bad. It's just we have watched it so much and spent so much time on it already that we're just like, oh my gosh. When you start to hear things and look at things over and over again, you just start you get kind of sick of it. So I think that's where that comes from. But oh gosh, I almost stopped my recording. We're good. Yeah, so I mean, I guess you kind of touched on everything. The last part of it is color grading, sound design, tweaking everything, and kind of just making sure the story flows and makes sense and feels good. And a big part of our job is rewatching what we have made over and over and over again, like you said, that's the only way that we can really find those minor things we want to change, or that's the only way that we can tell if like, hey, this makes a lot of sense. This flows really nice. This feels really nice. But yeah, I mean, that's pretty much the end process of post-production. I mean, then you got to export your final films, and that's a long process in itself too. Then you gotta send it to them, make sure they love it, and then posting it on your social media. So it's by no means a quick thing, but like we said before, I think 40 hours is definitely on the faster end of turning around a 7 to 10 minute highlight.
Yeah. Yeah, I definitely learned how many weddings is like a good number. And probably not going to take as many weddings the next couple years. Except I'm already at like 25 next year.
Don't you already have more next year than you did this year?
Well, I had like 30 this year.
Yeah, I'm taking a lot less. I'm taking either 5 to 10 less this coming year.
But next year they're way more spread out, which is weird.
Yeah, I feel like this year, dude, I feel like we both had just stretches of, I think my longest stretch was like 11 weekends in a row or something like that. Which is 2.5 months of every single Saturday having to go film a wedding, which there's nothing wrong with it. I love it, but it does get, just normal wear and tear on your body of standing for 16 hours and not getting very much sleep and all that. But anyway, so yeah. That's kind of the process. I think we could literally make a list sometime and do one episode per each thing. So one episode about calling through the audio, just because like there's so much to unpack, and it's kind of hard to really get into it in a podcast when it would be so much easier to be like, hey, let's hop in, like look at what I'm doing on my computer, kind of more of like a tutorial type thing to really show it. But I think we did a decent job at explaining it.
Yeah.
All right.
No,
So
I think for one episode, I think that's good.
Yeah. So we usually do the inspirations, and Ben usually has a pretty.
Oh God, I don't know.
Pretty unique one. Just to give the viewers and listeners a little refresher, he was super inspired when his neighbor shoveled the sidewalk that one time. Light bulbs one or carpet?
Why was I inspired by that?
Maybe it was both. I think it was carpet and light bulbs. Like you got new carpet or something, and you're like, I'm so inspired. Then you had one about light bulbs.
Inspired.
Yeah, yours are always kind of coming from left field.
Inspired. What has inspired me? How about you start this time?
Okay. I mean, it's inspiring, not maybe in like the wedding sense, but the new Spider-Man movie. It's just like,
shoot.
The everything was good. The effects, the sound, everything. But the storytelling of that movie is very I guess that fits in with this podcast very well. The storytelling of that movie, super good and super motivating and inspiring. It's like I want to go out and try to make a Spider-Man movie, although it's a pretty far out dream that might not ever be reality. But just definitely that movie inspired me to be like, holy cow, just being in the video industry in general is just so cool, and kind of gave me some motivation. Like, yes, I love what I do. This is awesome. Look at the cool things that people in the industry are doing. But yeah, if you haven't seen Spider-Man No Way Home, go watch it. You won't regret it ever.
What has inspired me? I'm like looking around to see if there's I guess I'll just go with this thing. So my cat, Oscar, he loves treats, and we have these temptation treats. They're just little. Do you know what temptation treats look like?
Are you asking me or the listeners? I've given Oscar several temptation treats.
Okay, so he loves those treats, and it gets to the point where it gets obnoxious, and I'm like, dude, chill. Like I'll give him his treats, and then literally like a couple minutes later, he'll be like, hey, can I have some more treats? And so we got this thing that's it's like a challenge. You put the treats inside here, and they have to like roll it around, and it takes them so much longer to get the treats. And so whoever came up with the idea of like to create this thing, to create this like challenge where they have to like work to get their treats, was genius. So it takes them so much longer, so I don't have to be like, no, I already gave you treats. Like, no, it takes them an extra like 10, 15 minutes to get all the treats.
I think it's also good. Like it's stimulating for their brain too. I think it's healthy in that way too. There's Oscar, he sees it.
He's sleeping right now.
Tired boy. I'm tired. Well,
yeah, I am too, and I need to edit some more.
Yeah, I need to get some more work done. But that might be your most like casual, inspiring thing, I think.
I don't know. I feel like that's not that inspiring though.
I mean, kind of.
It's inspiring as far as like.
You could have went a few routes with it. You did the one with the inventor of it being a genius, like it's inspiring how smart he is, or you could have went with the determination by Oscar to get those treats out of there. No,
I just think it's interesting how it's like they approached it as like a problem. Like, okay, how can we make this more interactive but still exciting?
Yeah. Well, cool.
Yeah. Well,
thanks for being an avid listener through season 1 of the Creative Crunch podcast.
I might be bald the next time we podcast. Look at that. Look at how thin that is.
I think it looks fine. You can't even tell. If you shave, I'll shave. No, that's not true.
All right, deal.
No. Actually, I've been thinking about it. I might. Anyway. Thanks for being season 1 listeners. Hopefully we get some new listeners season 2 and everything's a little more organized and cool. Well, thanks for watching and listening and subscribe and like.
Subscribe, yep.
Yeah, and if you're out there and
share the episode.
Share, like, subscribe, and if you're out there and
nobody made it this far. Nobody's made it this far.
That's not true. People.
Right, well, if you made it this far, send a review to us, please. We very much need a review on Apple Podcasts
or Spotify.
All right, I think we're done.
Yeah. Oh well. Okay. Well, bye.
Did you hit stop recording? Bye.
This is the Creative Crunch Podcast.
Yesterday's left turn might be tomorrow's right turn.
Oh, yeah.
Yeah. Wait. That's a good idea.